Today we are very delighted to have with us Mr. Neil Parekh, the chairman of Singapore Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he's also a nominated MP. He's from Indian origin, and today we celebrate. This year is very important for Singapore. Singapore turns 60. Singapore-India relationship is 60 years. So there's a lot of celebration, and both the countries have grown phenomenally. So, Mr. Parekh, you have seen and witnessed things change within the countries and between the countries. Share with us what you have noticed over these years.
Well, Nomita, good to be here. Good to have a conversation. I think the Singapore 60 is a huge achievement for a country that, as one of our leaders has mentioned, is an accidental country. The red dot that has been shining for a long period of time, and I think will be shining for an even longer period of time. The relationship between Singapore and India has, I think, only blossomed in the last few years. Not just from an economic standpoint, but even from a socio-cultural standpoint also. And I think, again, that is on a positive trend, and I think that will continue for many, many years to come. As you know, about 10% of Singapore's population is of Indian origin, and they contribute significantly to various parts of the Singapore society, Singapore economy, and I think that's going to continue in the years to come. I'm quite optimistic about relationships between the two countries. It's obviously been of great importance to the current government in New Delhi, but even the earlier governments have put a lot of focus on Singapore-India relationship. Vice versa in Singapore, from the leadership standpoint, but quite frankly, even from the next layer of leaders and business investors, business owners, India is a very important component of their everyday thinking, if I may say so. Good start, if I may say, for 60 years is more than a start, but I think the years to come will be even better.
We just had elections in Singapore, and we are very all happy with the outcome of the elections. And as Singapore grows leaps and bounds, and India is also showing its prowess in many, many things, your chamber has been a very critical arm of chronicling growth between the two countries from the earlier beginning in early 1940s till now. How has that Indian who has been part of your chamber been instrumental in connecting our two countries?
Oh, I think the chamber is, by the way, 101 years old, so it started in 1924. There are many members who have been with us since inception. So at our centenary celebrations last year, we recognized many of them, and we've also put together a book on the members as well as the evolution of the chamber and the evolution of Singapore while the chamber has grown. Mm-hmm. Now, in my view, there are many members of the chamber, long-standing members, whose forefathers came from India, but have been residing in Singapore for a very long period of time, who have helped sustain and develop the connectivity between the two countries. From an economic standpoint, for sure, but also, quite frankly, from a socio-cultural standpoint. They have often identified opportunities for business because they have an understanding of the Indian market. And vice versa, they have attracted businesses from India to come here because they have seen what works or what are the needs of business in Singapore. So that continuity, that stability, that familiarity with both markets is really what we need. And Singapore is a great source for finance, besides, of course, on the manufacturing side, or the high-end manufacturing. So there are many things that have developed in sync. You've seen the payment systems between what has happened between India and Singapore. I mean, it's one of the first two pairings in Asia that has blossomed so well. And I think there'll be more of that to come.
You have witnessed the progress of these two countries firsthand. Which are the sectors you think have greater potential between Singapore and India as we go along? These 60 and the next 60?
Yeah, the historical, obviously, it's been a lot of manufacturing, petrochemicals, and some services that have been the key source of the bilateral trade between the two countries. I personally feel that going down in the future, we will see more on the semiconductor side between the two countries, significant interest on both sides. Data center development in various operations in India. Then agri will remain important. It has been important, will continue to remain important. And broadly speaking, one of the sectors that has perhaps not been explored as well is tourism in India, which perhaps has a lot of potential for attracting tourists from not just Singapore, but quite frankly from Southeast Asia. So there are numerous touch points that one can focus on in the years to come. One key area that I see is helping the region, helping both the countries in the development of on the sustainability side, of converting existing businesses to being sustainable and advocating in a serious way how best to embrace green finance as well as projects that are very eco-friendly. I think it's a priority for both countries, and I think both have a lot to contribute to each other in that area. So numerous touch points going forward. Some that have been there in place for many years, and some with the evolution of the global economy. I think there's even more to do. On the services side, of course, there have been many specialists on the technology side who have helped bridge Singapore and India together, and I think there is a large number of people of Indian origin who are in the technology business in some form or the other in Singapore. I think that's going to continue because Singapore needs talent, real talent, and can attract selectively the right people to come. And quite frankly, India has a surplus of well-educated, well-qualified talent who can add value to the growth of the Singapore economy. Obviously, it has to be structured and measured to make sure that the best talent comes here and the talent that is really accretive to the economy is attractive to come to Singapore.
Speaking about talent, we have very good educational institutions both in Singapore and India. How, in your opinion, do you think we can get more students interested in kind of going to India and getting first-hand experience so that we sow the seeds of the future collaboration with these young minds?
I've always believed every student in Singapore should spend time internationally. I mean, whether it is India or China or Indonesia or wherever, because the reality is for our growth, we need to have what I call internationally literate business professionals. And, the best way to get that literacy is actually living abroad and, working abroad and understanding the culture, understanding the business norms in different countries. Education is a very good pull because if you have spent some time as a student abroad, you are going to be a lot more willing to take opportunities abroad for your own career growth and the growth of businesses that you are representing. So I think more should be done. More is being done, quite frankly, amongst our universities here in Singapore to internationalize the mindset of students.
Absolutely.
Can more be done? Of course. I mean, there is no limit to this. I mean, the more international we are, the better it is. I mean, there are not too many countries in the world where the GDP is 3 times the size of the economy. A lot of that is trade. So I think I didn't say that right. The trade is 3 times the size of the economy. And the reason that is the case is because Singapore businesses and Singaporeans have embraced doing business abroad in a big way, partly out of necessity because we are a small country, but partly also because of the opportunity out there. And we can only help grow that in the years to come. So I think whether it's India or any other large economy, we should continue to encourage our students to spend time abroad while they're in various programs, whether it's even, I think personally, in my view, it should start from high school.
You have over 600 members
Yes.
in the chamber. And what are the key industries they are from? And how do you facilitate them in their growth story?
So we have a wide diversity of members. We have some very large members, and then we have what I call relatively small businesses. But the heart and soul of the business membership is our SMEs, so small and medium enterprises, across a wide range of sectors, because this is an ethnic chamber of commerce, so it's not driven by a specific sector. It is driven by ethnicity more than anything else. The sectors that are quite important for our members, what they represent, is certainly on the manufacturing side. It's a very important component of our membership base. Also, when it comes to services, a wide variety of services that are there. We have a lot of members from what I would call enterprises that are service the local community. They don't export anything, but they cater to the local community. Everything from restaurants to what I refer to the best smelling shop, a flower shop in Singapore. And
they're your members as well.
They are our members too. And then on the large cap side, of course, we have conglomerates who have chosen to be members of our chamber, largely because they can take advantage when we send missions to different parts of the world and to many states in India. They participate quite actively in that. They also wish to contribute when we are writing into various ministries with comments, inputs, not just for the budget, which of course we do on a regular basis, but whether it's a Ministry of Manpower, Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ministry of Finance, of course, then the digital MDDI, different aspects where we are asked to comment, and sometimes we volunteer our comments, and they want to be part of the dialogue. And we fortunately have a government and a culture which encourages chambers of commerce to contribute to this dialogue. So it's not one-way traffic; it's really both ways traffic. And to me, part of Singapore's success is this ability to work together, where it's a two-way dialogue, and they want the government is very keen to find out what the businessman is thinking, and the businessman is very keen to find out what the government is thinking. Obviously, the very warm relationship we have between government, business, and labor has also helped to bring stability to Singapore. But not only that, help businesses grow, help employment grow, and it's this, if I may say, the warm relationship which is there. But that warm relationship is based on an open dialogue, and I think that open dialogue, that openness to willingness to listen to ideas from people who may have a different opinion, but that's okay. We want to listen to each other's opinions, I think is a big reason for our success.
How is your relationship with other chambers in India? And besides India, which other countries? Is it your agenda is focused more between India and Singapore, or is it other countries as well?
Oh, it's definitely other countries as well, but a good part of a business is between India and Singapore. The reason being, India is thriving, India is booming. So for our members, it's to make them aware of the opportunities in India, first and foremost. But we have taken business missions to Turkey, we have taken business missions to Vietnam, we're planning one very shortly to Indonesia, Sri Lanka. There are numerous countries that we are investigating, Uzbekistan, that we are looking to be in September. And the reason behind that is our members are looking for new markets. When you're looking for new markets, India is obviously a big target. But that doesn't mean there are not other markets that can be quite attractive. So our view has been wherever we feel that our members should invest their time and energy, we encourage that. It happens to be that clearly the Indian economy has done well in the recent past and will continue to do well, in my view, in the years to come. So India is a prime target, but it's not the only target for sure.
You know, in recent years, you've been taking delegations not only to the capital of India, but you also have been engaging with states. What has your sense on the ground been? What do you see? What has changed, and what does it bring for your members and Singaporeans at large?
People talk about India, but India to me, from a business standpoint, is a collection of states. Mm-hmm. So if you don't do business at state level, you're not really going to be successful by just talking about India as this one large, nebulous, cohesive, homogeneous entity, which it is not. So since I got to be chairman 3 years ago, the focus has been on state by state growth. Where do we see the best opportunities depending on the sector our member is part of? So sectoral focus, state focus, put the overlay together and sense where the best opportunities are. Because that's the only way it works. So we work with a lot of regional chambers of commerce in India. For example, the Tamil Nadu Chamber of Commerce, the Gujarat Chamber of Commerce, the Punjab Chamber of Commerce, the Maharashtra Chamber of Commerce. We also work with national bodies, ASSOCHAM, CII, FICCI. But so we want a dialogue with everybody. But the reality is, it's where our members have interest in that specific sector and where the best opportunities are. I'll give you an example. When it comes to machine tools, Tamil Nadu is probably one of the best in the world, not just one of the best in India. So what we've done is taken delegations to Tamil Nadu to explore that with many of our members to see how best we can expand it. Mm-hmm. So I think being focused in a large country like India is not an option. It's almost like mandatory if you really want to be successful. If you want to go for a tourist trip, then of course you can do things very superficially. But if you're really serious about doing business, it has to be state by state.
How has your successes been, the conversion rates? You bring these delegations, do they come happy? Do they get deals? Are they encouraged to go again, or are they frustrated?
I don't know, this is a very good point. Very good point, because one of my pet phrases is, I don't care about how many MOUs are signed. I want to see what it leads to.
Sure.
Now, we can't influence every MOU conversion, because that is really between our member and the party on the other side. But I'm willing to say that our conversion rate has been certainly a lot higher than what has been perhaps in the past. For the simple reason that it's been a very focused approach. So when you have the focus, you have a sector by sector focus, you're trying to match states with that sector focus. It should lead to more success. It has led to more success. Is there room for improvement? Of course there is room for huge improvement, because you don't get it right the first time. Sometimes, it takes going through an MOU, going through doing business in a certain state or a certain regime that one learns. We're optimistic about other countries too. Quite frankly, the opportunities that we saw in Turkey, our members saw in Turkey, were far exceeding what we had envisaged before we went on that mission. We feel similarly about other countries. So when we pick other countries where we're going to take delegations, we are careful to see how it matches with the businesses of our members, because this is a membership-run organization. So we're not here to go on a tourist trip. We are here to really focus on how can we add value for our members, and how can they find value being on these missions. So far so good, but there's a huge amount of room for improvement.
The Indian who came to Singapore in 1800s and the Singaporean who comes now, they come from institutions which are reputable. And
You're referring to Indians?
Yeah, the Indians. So what do you see of this change and how has it helped Singapore?
I think we have a wide. I'm assuming you're referring to the Indian population that is residing today in Singapore. Yes. Some who have been here for generations and some who are relatively new.
Yeah.
I think it's a wide variety of people who come from India to Singapore. You have folks who come in the services sector. They're very proficient at that sector, what the services they provide, whether it's technology or other businesses they are part of. Different levels of education, different levels of familiarity with life in outside their village or area they're coming from. So it's hard to generalize. I'll say one thing though. I would say the academic proficiency of folks who are now being admitted or coming to Singapore is higher. So consequently, the sample size is different. There are also more white-collar workers coming in as compared to pure blue-collar workers coming in perhaps in the past, labor coming in the past. So there is a variety of people coming through. Different levels of assimilation that they are used to, and that's part of the education process. But I think that will depend on the needs of the economy. And I feel that immigration, not just in Singapore, but globally, should be driven strictly by the needs of the economy of the country that is there. Because I think that has the greatest sense of absorption and a willingness to absorb foreign talent into the economy if it's very focused on sectors where there is a gap.
After the SICCI was signed, then they say there's an influx of a lot of Indians, but now lots of Indians don't get employment, PRs and citizenships. And do you think there can be a reversal? What should be the ask of these people for the Singapore government, since you wear multiple hats, to absorb them, to assimilate them in Singapore society and get them the correct papers which they are aspiring to? For citizenships and PRs, do you think there should be a larger quota for Indians who are coming and contributing to the economy?
I think
would you advocate for that?
I would advocate for growth of anyone, of any community, any area of expertise that adds value to the Singapore economy. Because that leads to long-term success of that individual.
Absolutely.
So I look at it with an economic lens than any other lens, because the reality is allowing a foreigner from anywhere in the world to come into a certain country, doesn't matter whether it's UK, US, South Africa, Canada, Australia, Singapore, the bottom line should be, what is the value add?
Why is he here?
Why do we want the person here?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have that lens in mind.
Mm-hmm.
If that traction is strong, I think the acceptance is stronger. And then we have various programs in place where the assimilation can take place over time. So I'm less worried about the assimilation, to be frank with you. I'm much more focused on getting the right people in, who can add value right away, because that reduces the frustration of anyone coming in. But I don't think there's any country in the world that doesn't prioritize the skill sets of people that they want, in any new immigrant that they want. Because the reality is, it's not an infinite pie. So one has to be very cognizant of what is the value add. So, it's like running a business. Before you hire an employee, you say, what is the value add? How can I justify being part of this company? Same way in an economy, I think it's very important to have that value add lens. And I think many from South Asia, but quite frankly from other parts of the world, have tremendous value add in Singapore, because we are not a population that's growing in leaps and bounds. In fact, we need foreign talent. But the reality is, it has to be balanced very strictly with the needs of the specific sectors where there are ready opportunities for foreigners, and where we can't find local talent. Because should local talent get priority? Absolutely yes. I don't think there's any country in the world where local talent should not get priority. Same thing applies to any country in South Asia.
You are an example of a big success story. You wear different hats. You are a nominated MP.
I was. Parliament is dissolved now.
Okay. So you were. So what was your experience there? Which is the best hat you like? Is it being in the chamber? Is it with the investments you have and the banking experience? And how does this information flow and create something good for people who work with you?
You're very kind, Nomita. It's hard to say what I like specifically. It depends on a given day. But the reality is, I realized fairly early that I got satisfaction from giving back, where one is not compensated for the effort, but one gets a chance to really share one's ideas. And quite frankly, it doesn't come naturally for someone who grew up in the financial services industry. But the reality is, as one gets older, one realizes that, and maybe it had to do with parents who never prioritize money in their respective careers. But it brought a realism to my life where I said, listen, it doesn't have to be all about dollars and cents, which is the culture I grew up in as a young banker on Wall Street. But the reality is it's a cross-section of things, the mix that makes it the best. It's good to be able to speak in Parliament on certain issues, frankly, which I did, because I had certain views on certain topics. From a business standpoint, and Singapore is a wonderful place to do business. It may be a small nation state, but the reality is from an overall business and a financial center, it has disproportionate weightage and importance, and we punch way above our weight.
Absolutely.
So it's good to be part of that environment. And it's a dynamic environment in the sense you're always learning, and that's very important. It's very important to always be learning. At least personally for me, it's very important to always be learning, because at the end of the day, if you're not learning, to me, it's premature death.
What are the key changes you brought into the chamber since you started?
Okay, so in the chamber, like I said, first and foremost, if I may just repeat what I said about India, is a great focus on a state-by-state mission and looking at it much more from a very narrow focus, state-by-state sector approach. That's number one. Number two is professionalize the business management of the chamber. So we've, I think, made significant progress in that regard. Third, if I may say, is create events, create missions that are focused on the needs of perhaps not the whole membership base, but a large segment of the membership base. And the reason I say that is, I'll give an example. We have had events ranging from talking about macroeconomy, investing in a very fluid world, to what are likely trends in the near future, which have attracted a certain segment of our membership base. The same membership base is sometimes not interested when we have topics which are much more pertinent to a certain sector or a certain size of business, maybe the smaller end of SMEs, or a description about various programs being offered by various government agencies, which are very focused on folks who cannot have a team of their own to look at how best. I mean, the government has some fantastic grants, fantastic programs, but it's our job to make our members aware of those programs. Now, for the large cap companies, the first program may be a lot more attractive than the second programs that I'm talking to, the second set of programs I'm talking about, for the simple reason they already have a team managing how to deal with the government.
Yeah.
So horses for courses, very important. And that's right in the beginning of my term where I said we have to start looking at it more from if I may go back to my days in financial services and businesses, market segmentation, membership segmentation, understanding the needs of large segments of a membership base and catering events that are pertinent to them. Because there are certain events like our annual Deepavali event where everyone wants to join us because it's a festive
dress
event.
up and have fun.
That's right. But then at the other end, if you really want to add value, you've got to get deeper and narrower into the interest level of the various members. We also have a lot more networking events. Now, obviously with COVID in the past, that was not possible, but it has been possible in the last couple of years. And the reason is, one of the needs of SME owners is to talk to other SME owners and see how business is going and learn from each other. There's a social element to that, but I think they don't come for the social element as much as learning from people of the same size of business, some of the same trials and tribulations, if I may say, pain points, as well as growth opportunities. I mean, I've had SME members saying, listen, I didn't realize that XYZ company was already exporting to this country, and I was just, I was exploring, looking to do that, and these guys are already doing it. So I learned a lot from a networking session. So I think that market segmentation, that focus is very important. The third component, which I've always said to my team here, is content. We have to provide intellectual content. So whether it is our monthly magazine that we put out or other things that we do on a regular basis on social media as well as on our website, is we must provide content. Now, not content for the sake of content, but content that is pertinent to our business members. We are a business chamber. We are not a social chamber. So our focus is on how can we add value when we post something on our social media, which can be useful. It can be something as simple as the chamber has shared these ideas with the Ministry of Finance for the next budget. Now, these ideas are because we have had conversations with our members and saying, what are your pain points? What would you like to see?
Or so it can become a bridge between decision makers and the people who would benefit from this, and that's a very important thing to do.
And we need to do even more of that, to be frank with you. And the second thing is, sometimes we come across, and I'll give you an example, which is a personal thing for me, which is digitalization for our SME businesses. We talk a lot about digitalization, but how many of our SME members, SME community as a large group in Singapore, are truly where they should be on this digitalization journey? Where are they in understanding how AI can really help them optimize the resources that they have? So for recently, one of the things that is very important for me is we have done something with SUTD, is to put together content which can be useful for our members through our digitalization committee that we have, a subcommittee that we have as part of my board, is really to help educate people. And I use the word educate in a very careful way because that is not the mandate of the chamber. We are not an educational institution, but we are a bridge between an educational institution that is doing exceptional work in a specific area that can be very pertinent for our membership base. We are the bridge who can help bring that to our members who would not naturally think of going to a university at campus and asking the question, what are you doing in AI? What are you doing in digitalization that will help my business? So that's the bridge that we have to create. But that content is super important because at the end of the day, that's the differentiator for our businesses going forward. You can, like I said, if you're not learning, it's a sign of premature death in my view. So, and that applies to businesses too. You got to keep on evolving because the world is evolving around you. So if you want to remain competitive and actually, become even better, you've got to understand what is happening around you, not just be in your natural small world. The problem with a lot of SMEs is they don't have the resources and the time to do that. So it's the onus is on us to provide that value to them. So I think these are some of the things that certainly in the last 3 years we have tried to progress forward. A lot of work to be done. But
good work is being done.
Good work so far. I mean,
Everybody's talking about trade wars and tariffs and everything. How have you been able to address or bring it closer to your members, sourcing from alternate sources? What do you recommend?
So it's early days. Obviously, what was it called? Liberation Day was a month and a half away, and there have been different versions of liberation since then. But the reality is, tariffs will affect our businesses in a very different way. People who export are obviously impacted directly by the tariffs because are your products and services going to be, especially products, going to be competitive in the global world? It's just not selling to the US. The reality is, because of the change in the supply chain, some of the folks who wanted to sell into Singapore are hell-bent on selling more into Singapore, which impacts our local businesses. So how are they going to sustain their margins in case some of the countries around us decide to say, okay, higher per capita income, probably the only country in the region with the per capita income comparable to some of the Western countries. Let's target them in a significant way. Let's bombard them, if I may use the phrase, with our products that we cannot sell in other parts of the world because we have duties there, or tariffs to pay. So how are we going to look at many of our SME businesses? How are our SME businesses going to compete against that? On the other side, many of our members export a lot. They got to find new export markets because they need certain economies of scale of production to make business work, to make some profits. Now, if you can't sell the products that you're manufacturing, then the economies of scale change drastically, which means the profits change drastically. So how do we help them identify new markets? That ties in very closely with already the missions that we have put in place. Some of those missions are actually the non-India missions.
I see.
Selling more to Turkey, selling more to Uzbekistan, selling more to Sri Lanka, selling more to Vietnam. So we have to look at it from a broader lens. Not everyone is an exporter. Many are importers. Many don't do any import or export. Many of our members are what I would call catering to the local economy. For them, it is like who will be coming into the market to be competing with them for the same customer. For the export-oriented markets, is much more about where do you find new markets to be able to sell? How do you maintain your margins? How do you optimize your cost using digitalization and AI so that your break-even point gets even lower? Because if the more efficient you are, the lower your break-even point, along with looking for new export markets, is the name of the game.
Absolutely. One another question that comes to my head is that you do a lot of work with women. You have a chapter. Tell me, what is it and how can this work with India? What can be done with your chamber to open more doors between India and Singapore?
I think a lot can be done in that regard. It always astounds me at female participation at senior level in organizations could be a lot better. Let's put it that way. Yes, have we made progress? Sure, we have. I'm also involved in various programs at the Singapore Institute of Directors and SBF in that regard. But should we be doing more, pushing harder on that? We should definitely be. So one of the things at the Indian Chamber certainly is we have a whole group, we call it the SHE, the SHE group, where we have activities as well as, how best to put, value-add content being provided for our businesses who are members, female members, and the businesses that they run or are part of, how to add value to that specific. Again, going back to my prior point, which was about focus. It's very important to focus because one size does not fit all. You cannot, you have to be very specific. So it's a targeted approach. Now, vis-a-vis with India. India is, as you know, a massive country, tremendous talent. I think women have made a lot of progress in India. In certain parts of India, I think women have made more progress than other parts of India. And what we can do as a Chamber of Commerce is to showcase the progress that we are making here and share that with various bodies or states in India. And I always encourage strong female participation in our missions to various parts of India. And the reason I do that is, to me, women are better communicators. So the more women you have who are on these missions, the better it is for the mission itself, but more importantly for women-owned business in Singapore, because they come back with a wider experience that they can share with their respective ecosystems. So I think we are making progress. It's a much bigger issue. To be frank, it's a global issue, which is far beyond just looking at it from a narrow Singapore Indian Chamber standpoint. But there's a lot of work to be done in that regard. And I think the more business owners we have who are women, the better off we will be. Because the reality is there are many women in the workforce. There are many women, but they're not running businesses. And that's the next step that we have to bring to. You know, at SID, we talk about board directorships, but it's about elevating women at a higher level in each organization, whether it's a business ownership or it is part of a publicly listed, boards or what have you, is enhancing the role of the woman is, I think, to me in Singapore, of paramount importance.
We've touched upon a whole gamut of topics. Now coming back to you, I would say, in my opinion, this century has been the rise of a global Indian, and you exemplify one very important success story. Tell us, the readers who don't know about you, tell us about your story.
Well, I just wake up in the morning, I'm very happy.
Where were you born? How's your family? What are your children doing? What's been your biggest success? And what do you want to say to people who aspire to be like you?
That's a very broad question. So, first of all, I'm very thankful for whatever little success that I've had in my life. What I would mention to people, if I can just focus on that part of it, because I think some people don't look at the life, perhaps they live day to day, and I would encourage people to look at life in a broader context. And my favorite phrase when I was 20 years younger used to be, if I lived till 150, I would do things differently. Mm-hmm. And I still use that phrase, is that I'm a lot closer to 150 than I was then, 20 years ago. But the reality is, look at life in a more holistic way while focusing on today. You have to have focus, as we were just talking. We have to be very honed in on what your goals are, what your members' goals are, or what your own goals are. But at the same time, don't lose track of the fact that one has to look at a continuum, and one has to look at life in what does one really want to achieve, what gets you satisfaction, what is important for you, what is important for family, and how do you put that together. Now, you can plan as much as you like. Life will take its own course. Mm-hmm. But having a broad plan and having an idea of what makes an individual tick is very important. Because often you see people who go down a certain path for an extended period of time and say, oh my God, I'm X years old and all I've done is one thing. Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of that, time is running out. So you got to start early, you got to start thinking about yourself. You have to have a good understanding of yourself, what makes you tick. Mm-hmm. It may sound perhaps unrealistic, but I think the biggest dissatisfied community sometimes is the focus of the people who are focused solely on making money. Mm-hmm. You may say, how can that be? I said, no, that's reality, because it's a straight and narrow. But when pathways open up late in life, then one has to look back and say, could I have done things differently? But to each their own, everybody is different. As far as I'm concerned, I consider myself very fortunate more than anything else, where wide I've been able to live in numerous countries between the US, UK, Singapore, and India, of course. Have had the chance of interacting with folks from I don't know how many countries. I think I've covered at least 75% of the United Nations in various capacities. So I consider myself very fortunate. But also, it's going back to the point I said, giving back without getting compensated for it brings its own satisfaction,
Absolutely.
which doesn't meet the eye the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when one looks back and says, that was good. I liked enjoying doing it. But it comes with time. I mean, again, there's no rush to it. And what I say to my children when they are willing to listen to me is be what you want to be, but make sure you have a plan of action.
Yeah, absolutely. I would completely agree with you. We started our conversation talking about Singapore, India celebrating 60 years of bilateral ties. And as you know, I'm supported by Indian High Commission on this endeavor. So how is your relationship in the sense of a chamber? How do you work closely with the Indian High Commission? And what are the points of convergence? And what do you see this relationship developing further as we go into future?
I think we've been blessed by having first and foremost high commissioners who want to work with the Indian organizations in Singapore. SICCI being one of them. We worked very closely with, I would say, almost each and every one of the last 5 leaders, the high commissioners. But not only the high commissioners, the commercial attaches, but also the other people in the high commission, the deputy high commissioner, etc. So we work very closely with them. Again, our roles are different because we are a chamber of commerce. Mm-hmm. And whenever we can support the High Commission in certain ways, we do things together. Wherever we feel that it would be useful for our members to participate in any things that the High Commission is involved in, we encourage them to do so. Third, we are an important communication channel. So even if it's not directly pertinent to a business of a member of the chamber, we share information that maybe they may find useful for their own personal enhancement or for being more involved with India, whether it is an event that the High Commission is hosting. So from a communication standpoint, that's an important source because we can reach out to so many more people. Because keep in mind that behind every one of our 600 members there's a family, and there are families, I should say. So it's a very effective way to communicate. But we've enjoyed a very good relationship with the High Commission. But I really give kudos to our High Commission that really works hard. Our current High Commissioner goes out of his way to support us whenever and whichever way he can. And we try and reciprocate as much as we can. So I think we are blessed in that regard. I think part of the reason for the growth of the relationship between Singapore and India is having proactive High Commissioners respectively in Singapore and in the Indian High Commissioner in Singapore and the Singapore High Commission in New Delhi, who have always been very receptive to ideas, to thoughts, and working with the local community. So I think that'll only continue and get better. I only see that as a positive. And I'll be frank and maybe stick my neck out. I think amongst the various high commissions that we deal with, working with the Indian High Commission is probably has been one of the best from a standpoint that there is always a willingness to see how they can help. And vice versa.
Sir, an institution of 101 years, chairman of that institution, it's been an absolute delight speaking with you. I wish you all the best, and I would like you to pay homage to some of the luminaries of your chamber who've done good work for the community. Could you name some names?
Oh, there's so many. But first of all, thank you, Nomita. It's a real pleasure to talk to you.
Sir.
It's a very long list of people. Perhaps I mention them offline to you because just in case I miss somebody, then I'll feel bad about it. But it's a very long list of people. I'll share the list of people with you. Numerous people have contributed, and to be frank, when we were putting the book together for the 100th year last year, the book could have been 3 times the size it ended to be, so we had to bring it smaller. But there are so many stories of how they started off as a small business and have flourished with huge successes. I don't want to differentiate one from the other because everyone has their own story, but the reality is they've also contributed immensely to Singapore.
Yes.
The Singapore economy and of course the Indian Chamber of Commerce, but they've been significant contributors to the Singapore-India 60 years. The Chamber is older than the 60 years of relationship, but the reality is that that relationship has been flourishing over the years and can only get better.